Hey guys, today I am here out at Dealer's Auto Auction of the Rockies, and I'm bringing you something pretty special. Now, I am a huge Fox Body Mustang fan, but this just isn't any Fox Body Mustang. This is a 1984 Ford Mustang SVO. Super interesting car, great history. Let's get into it. Now, the Mustang SVO was only produced for 3 years starting in 1984, and this was done by their Special Vehicles Operations, or otherwise known as Ford's racing team. And this was their first baby. This was the first car that they had their hands on, and they really went all out, giving it tons of suspension upgrades that made this one of the early Mustangs that could actually handle on a racetrack. Now, since they only made these for 3 years, they only made a little over 5,000 of them. So they're actually, as far as Mustangs go, quite rare.
Hey, so if you want a really cool classic of your own, we are selling our 1987 BMW M535 over at TFLbids.com. That's right, this exact car is up for auction. This is a super cool ride, originally sold brand new in Japan and then imported here into the States where it got a manual conversion, but it's in fantastic condition, original paint, and this thing is one of the coolest rides anywhere. Check it out over at TFLbids.com.
And this was a 2.3 liter 4-cylinder turbo. And it put out 175 horsepower, which may not seem like a lot to today's standards, but keep in mind, the 5-liter V8 was putting out the exact same horsepower. So you could get the same horsepower from a GT, but from half the amount of cylinders, just adding a turbo in there. But that also made this actually much lighter, and like I said earlier, it handled much better. So this was a much more performance machine than the GT was, and it was faster. All right, let's start up the 1984 Mustang SVO. I think that's pretty nice. Sure, maybe it's not as nice as the V8 rumble, but still sounds pretty good. And now, this isn't my first Fox Body Mustang that I've ever driven. I actually owned, I think it was an 85 Mustang GT. So I'd be real interested to see the performance difference, because these are supposed to be a little bit quicker because they're lighter weight, and these are supposed to handle way better. I will say though, this one's in much better shape than mine was. Just goes to show, like, a true collector car is something really special to have. And I will say this clutch does seem to catch pretty late as far as clutches go, so it's going to take a little getting used to. And with only 38,000 miles, I would assume that this clutch isn't necessarily going out, that that's just how it was designed from the factory. Man, this thing feels tight. I can definitely tell all the time and energy that the SVO team put into the suspension on these, because it feels like, unlike a Mustang, which can sometimes feel a little bit wallowy, you know, little muscle car-y, this feels like a true, like, European styled sports car, quite honestly, just driving it this brief moment. But I've got it here on the test track. I'm kind of curious to see how this thing performs all these years later. I'm gonna give it what it's got. Let's see how she does. Woo! You can feel that turbo kick in. Oh, ho, ho! Yeah. Oh, the seat flop there, but oh, that is fun. Oh gosh, nothing like some 1980s turbo lag. Now, there are a few easy ways to distinguish an SVO versus some of the other Mustangs, and first and foremost is this hood scoop. And this is actually a functional hood scoop, and you can see it's actually not completely centered on the hood, and that's because it is directing air right in underneath the hood to get to the top mounted intercooler. The other thing is these wheels, which are quintessentially 80s, these like dish style wheels. I just love them. They are so cool. That was a factory SVO option, and these only came on the SVO, as well as these unique rear deck louvers. So these two rear wings were only available on the SVO, and it was factory standard. So if you see these two rear wings, you'll know it's an SVO. Now, climbing inside this Mustang, it's fairly standard as far as the 84 Mustangs, but you do get a special steering wheel that says SVO on it, and that is exclusive to the SVO. And then I believe this shift knob as well, it's a Hurst shifter, and that is exclusive to the SVO as well. And otherwise, it's fairly standard as far as what you'd find in an 84 Mustang. Not great, a lot of hard plastics, but it is a very 80s design, and it's just really cool in here. Another great thing is this particular Mustang, you can tell, was well cared for. It comes with all of these manuals. You've got a 1984 Ford Mustang owner's guide, and then this guy even has the original window sticker. Bear with me as I get these out. Yeah, so you can see he's got like a brochure, he's got the original Monroney on it, he's got some ads going back to when this thing first came out. Even, look at this, some old car magazines featuring the Mustang SVO in it. So these seats were actually really cool back in the day. It had a few unique features. It was really well bolstered, yet surprisingly comfortable. And then this thing also had this little bladder on here, which if you squeeze it up, builds up your lumbar support. And one other unique feature that I like on these is you've got this little handle here that you think will slide it back and forth, but what it actually does is you can move this forward and back. So if you are somebody with long legs and need a little extra support, there's a lot of options in this, and it can actually make it quite a comfortable ride. One thing I did notice is I did have this thing on AC, so that even performed pretty well, even with the AC on, but I've gone ahead and turned it off. So I think I'm just gonna get a smidgen more power out of it. And also something to keep in mind is I am up here in Colorado at over 5,000 feet in elevation. So turbo cars really do make a huge difference as far as performance loss goes. So my GT probably lose about 30% of that power, but in a forced induction car, you're probably only losing about 10%. So you can really feel the difference. Even though the horsepower is the same, you lose a lot less of that power by having a turbocharged. All right, well, I'm lined up on the track again with the AC off. Let's give it another shot. Oh yeah! Oh man, once you get this thing up over about 3,500 RPMs, that turbo kicks in and it really shoves you into the seat, and it is just so much fun. Also back in 84, you got a couple different keys. So the smaller ones, believe it or not, were actually for the ignition, and then these bigger guys helped you open the exterior of the trunk. So if you twist it, you'll see you have quite a lot of space. These were pretty practical back in the day. And then if you needed additional space, you could fold down these back seats, and then this would even fold flat to give you an additional like loading floor that would be nice and flat. And then if you had something a little extra expensive in here that you wanted to cover up, you could just pull this guy out. And then these two little hooks hook in right here. Oops. There we go. Pretty nifty. Another interesting feature that is exclusive to the 1984s is these headlights. And it's a really interesting design how the headlight actually sits further in than the turn signals. And that was changed in 1985, where it was a much more of a flush design where it was all one level as far as the headlights go. And then later on in the late 80s, early 90s, they went to a completely flat design on the headlights. Now this particular Mustang only has 38,000 miles on it. Such a time capsule, such a cool machine. And it is actually going up for auction here at Dealers Auto Auction of the Rockies tomorrow. So by the time this comes up, sorry, it's already sold at the auction. You kind of missed the boat on it. But if you have a chance to bid on this thing, I think you're going to end up with a really special machine. And I'm going to give you my guess as to what it's going to go for at auction tomorrow. Now, keep in mind, this is a dealer's auction, right? So whoever buys this is trying to sell it and make a little bit of money. So it's going to go for a little bit less than you would think. But I think tomorrow at auction, this thing could fetch $12,000, which, keep in mind, you're getting an 84 Fox body Mustang that they only made 5,000 of, and it's only got 38,000 miles. Quite a deal. Let's see how close I can get.
Turbo car, guys, very desirable and hard to find car, Fox body, and I like it.
So I want to give a special shout out to Cars R Us, which this video would not have been possible without them. They're the ones that allow me to have access here to Dealers Auto Auction of the Rockies. Cool dealership based up in Rapid City, South Dakota. Check them out if you're looking for a new car. But man, I have always pined after one of these, and being able to see it in person and to drive it, man, these are so cool. Don't let the fact that it's a 4-cylinder dissuade you. These SVOs were so cool back in the day, and I think that they are such a gem and should be collected and loved for a long, long time. Well, thanks guys for watching, and for all things automotive, check out alltfl.com. I'm Brendan with TFL. Have a good one.